Does Congressman Joe Sestak understand Israel is America's ally? Sestak raised money for an anti-Israel organization the FBI called a group for Hamas. Sestak signed a letter accusing Israel of collective punishment for blockading Hamas in Gaza. Sestak refused to sign a bipartisan letter affirming U.S. support for Israel. Call Joe Sestak. Ask him to stand with Israel. Paid for by the Emergency Committee for Israel.
That's the ad at the center of a war of words between Democratic Congressman Joe Sestak and a right-wing pro-Israel group. Congressman Sestak is, of course, running for the Senate in Pennsylvania, and he's with us here on set. That is a tough ad. We've actually had debates about that ad on this show on whether it's out of line or not. First of all, you tell us, is that a fair representation of your position on Israel?
No, absolutely not. Look, my perspective on Israel is probably unique in the entire Congress of almost anyone. 31 years in the U.S. military. I did exercises, operations with Israel. I was actually the leader of the very first exercise that ever brought a Muslim nation together with Israel and oversaw it in a military exercise to bring it about. This is done by a right wing, and it harms Israel. One of the greatest strategic leverages that Israel has is a bipartisan support for that country. It's a vital interest of ours, and I was out there every day trying to enhance its military readiness.
At the center of this attack, in this attack ad, is where it says you signed a letter, and they had I thought, very good dramatic lighting on the Sestak signature, asking for an end of the Gaza blockade, saying Israel was out of line and the Gaza blockade needed to be ended.
No, I signed a letter that said we have to ensure that Israel has $10 billion every year for its military assistance. But I also signed a letter that said that as I went about the world, we have vital interests. Israel is one. We have important interests. We also have humane interests. So we said in a letter, I said, Mrs. Clinton, could you see, while not impacting Israel, are we able to get cleaner water to the children there? Do you
support the end of the blockade, the Gaza blockade?
No, I think it's illegal. Yes, I'd like to see it end, but not until we can ensure that there is a two-state solution. I think Israel has the right to have a blockade so that arms aren't flowing into those who are really causing harm in Gaza, which is Hamas.
Let's get around the table. Al?
It strikes me as a bit of a cheap shot, but I haven't looked at it carefully. But, you know, this is I'll tell you what they're doing. I'll tell you exactly what they're doing up there, whether it's fair or a cheap shot. And the Congressman and I were talking about this beforehand. I think that this very close election in Pennsylvania is going to be decided in those Philadelphia suburbs. And there is a fairly sizable number of Jewish voters in those suburbs. And I think that's exactly who they're appealing to. I don't know if it'll be successful.
And this feeds off of a lot of Jewish supporters of Barack Obama felt like he has not been a strong enough advocate for Israel, right?
There is certainly there, and that's clearly the case in Israel. I think less so here. I always yield on these sort of issues, Joe, to Patrick Cannon.
Okay, well, that's not what we do here. Nora O'Donnell, this is a real issue, though. Israel, we've heard the Jewish community in America be very critical of Barack Obama. He's not supportive enough. Are we going to see this not only in Pennsylvania but also around the country?
I've not seen that come up in other Senate races. I may have missed it, but I mean it's particular in your race. And the question I have for you, Congressman, is what's happened in your race? There's a lot of Democrats who I talk to now are concerned that you guys may lose that seat.
Well, I'm in a dead heat, and we know that. But at the end of the day, this election in Pennsylvania will not be decided by what people see on the national level. They know they've been slammed, they know they've been ripped apart, but they know more than anything else, they don't trust Washington. I stood up to the Democratic establishment when it made a bad decision for that primary. At the end of the day, I believe what John F. Kennedy said. Sometimes the party asks too much, and I wanted to demonstrate. It ain't about Joe Sestak's job. It's about their jobs and creating jobs and helping them. I'll stand up to my party or anyone to help them. And also I believe this. As a congressman, I can't just talk to people who agree with me. For example, in that ad, it talked about CARE. Governor Rendell encouraged me to go, went that night with me and spoke of the Jewish faith. Because what we have to do, as in Pennsylvania, I don't want to work just for Democrats. I want to work for Republicans, independents, and bring people together to try to resolve issues. Just like I led that exercise of Turkey and Israel together to hopefully move towards peace. And out of it came that more close relationship with those nations.
Mike Barnicle is up in New York. He's got a question for you. Mike.
Well, Congressman, the ad that was just shown, I'm wondering if Pennsylvania is like a lot of large eastern, Midwestern industrial states. Foreign affairs is important to a certain frame of reference, no doubt about that, but are most people more concerned, most people that you encounter more concerned with what you were just talking about? My paycheck, am I going to lose it? How long am I going to be able to get a job?
It's about jobs, jobs.
And I answered a similar question, great question back at home. I said, look, I have great faith in the Jewish community. They're going to see through this outrageous lie. But what they know most is what other people in Pennsylvania know. It is about jobs. Look, in Pennsylvania, we have lost so many jobs, and the wolf has often been at Pennsylvanians' door. We're the sons and daughters, as I am, of a coal miner and steel workers, a grandson of a steel worker, and they will have seen the wolf at their door. They want to know, how do we get it away? How do we create jobs like small business tax credits and things like that?
After your election, we asked you how would you do things differently than the president, or I don't think we did, somebody else did, but you immediately talked about small business tax
just like
credits.
Right now.
Has Washington been too slow in responding to the economic crisis?
Absolutely. What they haven't done is recognize, in the case of small businesses, that small businesses of less than 20 people lost half of the unemployed in this recession. Imagine a tax credit of 15%. Where the working families of Pennsylvania are, for every new payroll, we'd soak up 2 million unemployed in 2 years. That's the focus of Washington that I want to change. Focus on the working family, not some ideology.
Are you suggesting the Obama administration really has failed Pennsylvania to some degree?
I'm saying that Washington, D.C. as a whole, the Hatfields and the McCoys, fighting amongst themselves, have failed to focus on what really drives the economy, working families. And where do they work? Small businesses. Look, in the last recession of 2001, 50% of all jobs were soaked up by small businesses, also of less than 20 people. Where's the tax credit for them? Where's the community bank guarantees to give loans to small businesses? That will drive the wealth up.
Deficit or stimulus? Which is the more important right now?
It is create jobs. That's what's most important. Let me tell you, and that's what we tried to do with the stimulus. But right now, what it is making sure that you create jobs by getting people to work.
Okay. Thank you so much, Congressman.
Thanks.
Always great to see you. Congressman Joe Sestak, and it is Deadlock. Coming up next, we've got Mark Cohn coming in. Of course, wrote